Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And we'll share the screen here. Share. Go October 13th in Asia. See what we have today. First topic is the publisher's desk. Sinner or divinity? While some faiths view man as sinful by nature, Hinduism holds that our inmost self is the divine and taintless soul, or Atma. October 2012. This publisher's desk was written based on traveling in Trinidad. The story itself is at the beginning of the pub desk text. This pub desk also shows an important way in which Hinduism and Christianity differ. In today's world of global communication, we encounter a multiplicity of views about the nature of man on a regular basis. At one extreme, each human being is inherently weak, imperfect, sinful, and without divine redemption will remain helplessly so. At the other extreme, each human is inherently divine. It is the instinctive nature, the animal-like nature, which contains the tendencies to become angry and harm others. Therefore, part of making progress on the spiritual path is learning to control the instinctive mind. This is one of the themes I talked about with Hindus in the Caribbean in August of 2011. I was told in Trinidad during my 2010 trip that this message, "You are a sinner in need of redemption," is being promoted strongly in an effort to convert Hindus. I am often asked, what should we say when confronted with this argument by strong-willed evangelists? What is the Hindu view? How would you respond to the statement, "You are a sinner in need of redemption"? Let's explore 3 quotations from prominent Swamis to define our Hindu perspective. Swami Vivekananda, address to the World Parliament of Religion, 1893. Vivekananda's message reflects his typically outspoken manner in affirming truth as he saw it. Being and becoming are different aspects of the same reality and are only relative to our intelligence. Man is the promise and potentiality of divine realization, of spiritual perfection, and therefore is God in the making. Nice statement. For even his humanity is intelligible only if regarded as an individualized self-expression of God. It is derogatory to human nature, therefore, to attribute sin to man. Besides God being the soul and supreme reality, how could a foreign element like sin invade the sanctuary of being? The Hindus refuse to call you sinners. Ye divinities on earth, sinners. It's a sin to call man so. It's a standing libel on human nature. Thank you, Swamiji. Very outspoken. Chinmayananda echoes those thoughts. Man is essentially divine, but the divinity in him is veiled by the unbroken series of desires and thoughts arising in his bosom. A variety of these grades and concentration of these create the variety of human beings. To remove the incrustation of desires and thoughts and unfold the divinity inherent in man is the ultimate goal envisaged by the scriptures. So that's a very important point. It's one thing to say that man is divine, but as Chinmayananda says, it's covered up by an incrustation of desires and thoughts. So the goal is to unfold the divinity inherent in man, which is what all our practices in Hinduism are trying to do. And Gurudeva, deep inside we are perfect this very moment, and we have only to discover and live up to this perfection to be whole. We have taken birth in a physical body to grow and evolve into our divine potential. We are inwardly already one with God. Our religion contains the knowledge of how to realize this oneness and not create unwanted experiences along the way. Negative karma. These opposite perspectives on man's nature, sinner and divinity, were candidly juxtaposed during a 2012 interfaith panel discussion in Midland, Texas, in which I represented Hinduism. The issue arose as clergy from 5 faiths responded to the question, in your faith, is humanity considered a one family? My answer was, the Hindu belief that gives rise to tolerance of differences in race and nationality is that all of mankind is good. We are all divine beings, souls created by God. Hindus do not accept the concept that some individuals are evil and others are good. Hindus believe that each individual is a soul, a divine being, who is inherently good. Scriptures tell us that each soul is emanated from God as a spark from a fire, beginning a spiritual journey which eventually leads back to God. All human beings are on this journey, whether they realize it or not. That's when I was younger. 14 years ago. The next speaker, Dr. Randall Everett of the Baptist Christian Faith. Very nice person, by the way. Very polite. Just has different beliefs. Put forth a distinctly different perspective. The idea of the oneness of humanity, this is where Christianity would differ from some of the religions. We do believe in the oneness of humanity, but the oneness of humanity is that we are a fallen people. We do not believe that we are inherently good. We believe we are inherently selfish and self-centered, and that's why, the big one, we need to be rescued or redeemed, that Christ rescues us from the domain of darkness. Very interesting, a juxtaposition. They certainly aren't the same. Looking more closely at the Hindu belief that man is not inherently sinful, rather the essence of man is divine and perfect, a further question arises. What is the Hindu view of sin? Gurudeva responds in Dancing with Shiva, but before we look at that, what is your answer? What is the Hindu view of sin? Instead of seeing good and evil in the world, we understand the nature of the embodied soul in 3 interrelated parts: instinctive or physical, emotional, intellectual or mental, and superconscious or spiritual. So it'll be a while before we get the answer from Gurudeva here. How do we act when the instinctive nature dominates? When the outer or lower instinctive nature dominates, one is prone to anger, fear, greed, jealousy, hatred, and backbiting. Not a very happy state of mind. How do we act when the intellectual nature dominates? When the intellect is prominent, arrogance and analytical thinking preside. So strongly intellectual people tend to think they have the right answers. Arrogance. How do we act when the soul nature dominates? When the superconscious soul comes forth, the refined qualities are born: compassion, insight, modesty, and the others. The animal instincts of the young soul are strong. The intellect yet to be developed is non-existent to control these strong instinctive impulses. When the intellect is developed, the instinctive nature subsides. When the soul unfolds and overshadows the well-developed intellect, this mental harness is loosened and removed. So that's a great statement there. When the soul unfolds and overshadows the well-developed intellect. So I like to think of the intellect like a computer. Computer is neither good nor bad. It depends how you use it. If you use it in a disciplined way, you're really a lot more efficient. If you let it distract you into all the things it can distract you into, then you become very inefficient. So the intellect needs to dominate how we use the computer, just like the soul needs to dominate how we use the intellect. Don't want the intellect to dominate the soul. In the quote on Singh, Gurudeva made reference to the concept of young soul. The idea is that all souls were created by God, but not at the same time. Thus, some are young souls at the beginning of the spiritual path, symbolized by the kauri tree seedling on the left, while others are old souls near the end, symbolized by the 2,000-year-old mature kauri tree. Those are in Australia. Paramaguru Yogaswami, in speaking to his devotees, described life as a school, with some in the MA class and others in kindergarten. Knowing the differences in spiritual maturity, he gave to each accordingly. So that's one of the aspects of the Hindu religion that's not necessarily understood correctly. Sometimes the complaint is Hinduism is too complex. Why can't it be simpler? Well, it's not really complex, it's comprehensive. It has a path for everyone, very young soul and the very mature soul and everybody in between. So there's lots of different approaches, and you don't try and do them all, you just find the one that fits your spiritual maturity in this life. Hindus do not condemn some men as evil and extol others as good, but rather see all as divine beings, some young, some old, and some in the intermediary stages. Back to our subject of man's nature, the understanding of man's threefold nature, instinctive, intellectual, and spiritual, explains why people act in ways that are not clearly divine, such as becoming angry and harming others. There is more to man than his essence or inner nature. We also have the outer nature. Each of us is a soul, a divine being living in a physical body. At the deepest level, we are pure, radiant, blissful soul. It's our spiritual or intuitive nature. We also have an intellectual nature and an instinctive nature. So that's a very helpful concept, man's threefold nature. Helps understand ourselves, helps understand others. Gurudeva referred to man's instinctive, intellectual, and intuitive natures as the three phases of the mind. So the way I like to remember phases of the mind is how the mind functions. Functions in three distinct ways: instinctive, intellectual, and superconscious. Oops, that's the next slide. By the word phases, Gurudeva means how the mind functions, the major categories of activities that it performs. Let's look in more detail at each of these three phases of the mind. Instinctive mind is easy to become aware of and experience. It includes the impulses of our physical body, our cravings, our desires, our digestive system, and our emotional mechanism that works through the physical body, systems of elimination and blood circulation, and the regulation of the heartbeat are all within the instinctive mind. This phase of mind functions automatically, which is what instinctively means. It is as much alive in the animal kingdom as among humans. In a religious context, instinctive and instinctiveness are used to describe the lower animal instincts of human nature, such as self-preservation, procreation, hunger, and thirst, as well as lower emotions of humans such as greed, hatred, anger, fear, lust, and jealousy. Sanskrit term for the instinctive mind is manaschitta. Example of the instinctive mind. A typical Indian meal is comprised of many different types of food. Rice or chapatis, dal, vegetable curries, which can be spicy, yogurt, sweets, and fruits. We combine all these different types of food. Somehow our body knows how to digest them. The ability to digest an Indian meal is a quality of the instinctive mind. We don't have to think about digesting the meal. It's going on all by itself. Studying the behavior of animals is a good way to understand the instinctive mind. Take cats as an example. A cat can be curled up and quite content. Then there's a loud noise. The cat has no choice but to become fearful and scowl. They may run and hide. Cats have absolutely no choice. Cats can't think. I wonder what that noise is. Should I run away? Am I being threatened? They don't have that choice. It's an automatic response to a stimulus. Comparing cats to dogs, if the dog hears the same noise that the cat did, his response is to start barking at the noise. He doesn't run and hide. His instinctive mind has a different set of responses than does that of a cat. Man alone develops the intellectual mind and is responsible for its composition as he lives along through life. This phase is a mixture of man's instinctive desires and cravings, coupled with the knowledge he has gained from others and from his own intuitive discoveries. So it's quite a combination of different things. Within man's intellect, he organizes a vast amount of knowledge that begins to accumulate from a very early age. 90% of the knowledge deals with the externality of the world and mind itself. The intellect can consume most of man's time through an incarnation, and usually does, lifetime after lifetime. Sanskrit term for the intellectual mind is buddhi-chitta. School is a good example of utilizing the intellectual mind. When we are younger, schooling consists of memorizing important information. We're focused on developing the intellectual ability of memory. When we are a bit older, we learn to use the faculty of reason and logic to analyze information. It is no longer enough simply to recall the facts from memory. We need to learn to analyze them according to reason and logic, come to certain conclusions. Memory, reason, and logic are all part of the intellectual mind. Intuitive or superconscious phase is even more complex, more organized, more refined than the instinctive or intellectual phases. When intuitive flashes come, one knows the next thing to be done in a creative activity. It is mystically known as the mind of light, for when one is in this state of mind, he may see light within his head, and sometimes throughout the entirety of his physical body, if his inner sight is developed enough. Otherwise, he just begins to feel good all over, as actinic energy permeates his nervous system. Most refined essence is Satchidananda, all-knowing, omnipresent consciousness, the one transcendental, self-luminous divine mind common to all souls. Sanskrit term for the intuitive mind is karana chitta. An example of an intuitive flash is if you have ever had a hunch and had it work out. That is the superconscious mind working within you. It has dominated your intellectual mind. It has made it possible for you to look into the future and estimate its happenings. Second example is that in addition to seeing a brilliant inner light, other profound experiences occur in meditation, such as a sense of intense divine love for everyone and everything. How can we live more in our intuitive or soul nature and less in our intellectual and instinctive nature? We can live more in our intuitive nature through consistent meditation and devotional activities in the home shrine, chanting, performing puja, attending puja and going to the temple on a regular basis, listening to and playing refined music and performing traditional dance and other creative arts are also ways of channeling the energies into the intuitive nature. So that's how Gurudeva looks at it, channeling of energies. It's not a question of giving up desire. Desire is energy expressing itself through certain chakras. It's a question of raising the energies to higher chakras. Then the desires naturally fall away. So we raise the energies through these types of practices just listed. I like to say that we have an inner perfection and an outer imperfection. We can take heart in identifying more with the inner perfection, our soul nature, and realize the outer has its problems, which we can work on. And that is the purpose of our life on earth, to work on ourselves, to learn, evolve, and ultimately know God. With this attitude born of the belief in our divinity, we are more detached from our shortcomings and difficulties. It's just energy flowing through our outer instinctive and intellectual nature. It's not who we are. We realize that we can control that energy flow. How do I want my energy to flow? Which negative habit do I want to improve today? It all becomes easier to tackle because we look at it in an impersonal way. The concept of man's threefold nature can help us put our failings into perspective so that we do not become discouraged by them. Shortcomings such as occasionally being hurtful toward others do not at all change the fact that our essence is divine. We can deepen our experience of inner divinity and overcome shortcomings by consistently following the various practices found in the Hindu religion. When we feel good about ourselves, we can more readily identify negative patterns and change them. We have a negative concept of ourselves, believing that we are inherently flawed and sinful. We are not in such a good position to advance on the spiritual path. So that's why I like to say, inside you're perfect, outside you've got problems. If you're born on earth, it means you have problems on the outside. Everybody who's born on earth has some problems on the outside to improve. And one thing we can all feel good about is that Hinduism assures us not only that we are not sinners, but that every human being without exception is destined to achieve spiritual enlightenment and liberation. So that's an important difference from some religions where you can end up in an eternal hell. In Hinduism, everybody eventually ends up in heaven. And our second topic, character qualities from our workbook. We're in the D's here. Diligence is the 19th character quality, and how would you define diligence? You know I'm in Hawaii because you can hear roosters. Most places you can't hear roosters. The workbook gives this definition. Diligence means performing tasks thoroughly and with careful, earnest, steady effort. Strength and diligence when I do my best and vigorously completing any work or instruction. The opposite is half-heartedness. So doing your best. Simple paraphrase. And quotes from Gurudeva. Hard work, diligence, and perseverance in religious practices will be found as the spiritual foundation in the lives of all the world's great saints. Meditation is essentially work, good hard work, and you should be willing to work and expend energy so that you can meditate. One must look at spiritual unfoldment in the same way one approaches the study of a fine art. If you were studying Divinity with a very accomplished teacher, he would not appreciate it at all if you went to 3 or 4 other teachers at the same time for study behind his back. He demands that you come and go from your lesson and practice diligently in between. And reflection. Take a moment to identify a few ways in which you could improve in diligence. Third topic, answering questions sent to satsang@hindu.org. We still have questions we haven't answered yet, so some of them I just answer on email, the ones that would not be of broad interest. And the ones of broad interest get answered in the keynote presentation. How on earth may we achieve and maintain imperturbability? Well, let's define it. Imperturbability refers to the quality of being calm, composed, and unshaken by external disturbances. Person with imperturbability remains unflustered even in stressful or challenging situations, showing great emotional control and steadiness. So the answer I'm giving, you can also give other answers. You can compare imperturbability to weightlifting. How can I lift a really heavy weight? Well, we all know the answer there. By starting with a small weight and gradually increasing it. So for imperturbability, we can start by not becoming perturbed in simple situations. Once that is accomplished, work on medium ones, and once that is accomplished, work on major ones. So just like lifting a heavy weight, you got to work up to it. If our soul was always connected to Shiva Maya, then how did we get trapped in the web of illusion of the world? We are part of God, then how can we fall into the bondage of Maya? Good question. Great answer in Dancing with Shiva, Shloka 29. The 3 bonds of Anava, Karma, and Maya veil our sight. This is Shiva's purposeful limiting of awareness, which allows us to evolve. So Shiva did it on purpose. Why? To allow us to evolve. In the superconscious depths of our soul, we always share God Shiva's all-knowingness. So it's still there, we're just not looking in the right part of us. In other words, the soul body needs to evolve to mature. Gurudeva develops the idea further in the Bhasya. So we mature through experience, handling experience with imperturbability and other qualities. Just as children are kept from knowing all about adult life until they have matured into understanding, so too is the soul's knowledge limited. we learn what we need to know, and we understand what we have experienced. Only this narrowing of our awareness, coupled with a sense of individualized ego, allows us to look upon the world and our part in it from a practical human point of view. Pasha is the soul's triple bondage of Maya, Karma, and Anava. Without the world of Maya, the soul could not evolve through experience. So that's the key idea. The soul evolves through experience. Karma is the law of cause and effect, action and reaction, governing Maya. Anava is the individuating veil of duality, source of ignorance and finitude. Maya is the classroom, Karma the teacher, and Anava the student's ignorance. 3 bonds or malas are given by Lord Shiva to help and protect us as we unfold. Yet God Shiva's all-knowingness may be experienced for brief periods by the meditator who turns within to his own essence. Tirumanduram explains, when the soul attains self-knowledge, then it becomes one with Shiva. The malas perish, birth cycle ends, and the lustrous light of wisdom dawns. So that's very important. And it's not necessarily understood. So, for example, going to school. Even though school is Maya, you're supposed to do really well at it. So we need to accept the relative reality of Maya. We can't just deny it, say it's only relatively real, it's not absolutely real, therefore I'm going to ignore it. No, we have to accept it and go through the natural experiences it provides, and in doing that, the soul body matures. So that's the point. And see if we can end the share there. There we go.